Hello, and welcome to a brand new day of free-to-play here on Magic the Gathering Real Life. Get the dish on the latest with me, Lord Rumfish. I created an entire set, 281 cards. I call it Wastes of Veldmar. And we've been through the rules primer, talked about the color factions, which we'll get into again because this is multicolor. It's kind of time to revisit the factions a little bit. We've been through white, blue, black, red, and green. Um, So we're on to multicolor now, and we're going to start things off with a bang. This is Apotheosis, which means to ascend to godhood. It costs 8 mana, 4 and white, blue, black, red. This is a consortium card, therefore they're a 4-color faction, a former branch of the Infinite Consortium, which fell apart, but the branch here on Veldmar flourished and took over the plane and ran it into the ground. Anyway, Apotheosis is a mythic rare. It's an enchantment. It has the activated ability of Banish 10, which means exiling the top 10 cards of your library. You can cast a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Um, this is it's one of the cards. It's kind of like maybe it's a fixed version of Omniscience. Um, but there are ways that you could try to sidestep what this is doing a little bit. For example, if you had the ability to tutor enough cards to your hand, you could make a deck that had more than 60 cards. It'd be, inconsistent. It'd be a little hard to do, but if you started with a 250 card deck, you could cast a lot of spells with Apotheosis before you were at risk of milling out. Um, if you stick to a traditional, like, 60 card deck, you're probably going to be more than 10 cards deep into that deck by the time you get this on the table, unless you trick it into play. In which case, if you tricked it into play, maybe you could find a way to get 5 spells out of it in a 60 card deck. And maybe in 5 spells you could win the game, if they were big enough. You got a little bit further to go if you're in a format like Commander. You know, 99 card deck, if you get it into play quickly enough, then yeah, you get some more free spells out of that. And as I said, you could go really big. It's an interesting card. Anything that lets you cast spells for free kind of gets the brain ticking a little bit about, well, okay, if I could cast, you know, Searing Wind for free, or the one from Neon Dynasty that deals 10 damage to target player. It's like, well, if I could cast 2 of those for free, I would just win the game. That would be 20 damage to the opponent. So how many cards do I really need to cast to be able to win the game? It's a good question. There could be an Apotheosis deck. It's an interesting restriction on casting your spells for free. It's gets my brain ticking, gets me thinking in a way that an unrestricted card like Omniscience is doesn't really get me thinking. There's no deck building restriction there, so I find this kind of thing more interesting. All right, Barrack Narmis, Anarchist. For green, white, black, he's part of the Nullveer. We have a legendary human warlock. He's a rare, he's a 4/2. He's got Menace. When Barrack enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a permanent. If you do, each opponent must sacrifice a permanent that shares at least one type with the permanent you sacrificed. Um, so this is a version of Braids, where the opponent doesn't get to opt out with, you know, losing 2 life, and you draw a card. And when Barrack dies, you draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Um, That is a good package of value. You have to, wait for a second on the cards, but getting two cards back for one, uh, I think that makes this guy pretty playable. I think that makes him pretty good. So, um, just, the more colors you add to a card, it's a little bit less and less likely to see play, but if it's strong enough, and I think he's got what it takes. Good package of stuff overall to pressure the opponent. If you want, his mode can even do like land destruction and stuff. So yeah, I think this card wears enough different kinds of wizard hats, even though it's a warlock, that you can probably find a use for it. Captain Palada Varen. So I have a few multicolor cards that don't strictly line up with one of the factions, and this is one of them. So Captain Palada Varen is one, a blue, and a red. So as a pirate, she's kind of doing her own thing. If you're drafting the set, she could go into your Quel'Nai College deck or into your, four-color Consortium deck. She's a mythic rare. She's a 4/2 human pirate with haste and menace. Whenever she attacks, you draw a card, discard a card, then create a treasure token. If you discarded a non-land card, you may return target non-creature, non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So she can bounce, artifacts, enchantments, battles, planeswalkers, all that kind of stuff. You can use it to give yourself value. You can use it to set back the opponent in some way. And she's got aggressive enough stats here as a 4-power haste with menace that pretty sure, and generating treasure and all of this, this is a good package of stuff. I'm pretty sure she can find a home somewhere. Consortium Angel. This is an uncommon, something you can build your draft around. So 7 mana, 3 and white, blue, black, red. It is a 5/5 uncommon angel with flying, lifelink, menace, and ward, pay 3 life. As long as you control a forest, Consortium Angel gets -2/-2. That is to stop the 5-color players from poaching all of the great Consortium cards. I'm trying to really encourage people to play 4 colors and not 5 colors. You really have to battle some things that are inherent to the way that Magic is structured a little bit to get this to work. So things have turned on their head a little bit in this set. But this is a great card to try to close out the game if you're in draft. 7 mana is a lot, but you get a lot for that 7. So it's definitely well worth it if you're able to cast this card. Consortium Deathcraft. Got another mythic here. This is 9 mana. It is 5 colorless and white, blue, black, red. Sorcery. Target opponent sacrifices 4 creatures, then you return up to 2 creature cards from that opponent's graveyard to the battlefield under your control. So that could be 2 of the ones they just sacrificed, or, it could be something else that had been in their graveyard prior to that. This is obviously nasty. It's obviously really powerful. 9 mana is a lot. But maybe you have a way of casting the spell for free, like an Apotheosis or something else. Or maybe you're just willing to ramp up to this and just hardcast it. Anyway, it's a giant spell effect. This is kind of what the Consortium does. They do these huge, over-the-top, like, splashy, inefficient, massive spells. Right? that kind of hubris and decadence is the kind of stuff that exemplifies the consortium. So I think this spell is going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be great at casual tables. Could, if this was standard legal, I think it could find a home in constructed possibly. Consortium dominance. We're hitting up some of the giant spells here. This is 3 colorless, a white, 2 blue, a black, and a red. So it's 8 total mana. It's an instant. Counter target spell. Draw cards equal to that spell's mana cost. Gain life equal to that spell's mana cost. Destroy target creature with power equal to or less than that spell's mana cost. Then Consortium Dominance deals damage to any target equal to that spell's mana cost. Mana drain, eat your heart out. I mean, yeah, this costs 6 more mana than a mana drain. So you might rightly suspect it does more. Doesn't actually produce mana, but yeah, you get a heck of a lot. The big one is the drawing cards equal to the mana cost. That's ridiculous. The other modes are, a kill spell and the damage. Those are probably roughly worth about a card apiece. Gaining life is probably not quite worth a card, unless it's a lot of life. But the drawing cards. That's worth a lot. So that combined with all the other effects, and you're taking out a spell at the same time, right? You've countered a spell in the process. So that's worth a card on its own. This kind of absurd spell, again, is underlining what the consortium is all about. So if you needed more of an introduction to what the consortium is, what kind of shenanigans they get up to as the de facto rulers of the plane, it's this kind of stuff. Consortium Mercenary. This is another uncommon. So he is white, blue, black, red, 4 mana. It's an uncommon dwarf mercenary. He's a 3/3. As long as you control planes, he gets +0/+2. As long as you control an island, it gets vigilance. As long as you control a swamp, it gets lifelink. As long as you control a mountain, it gets +2/+0. And as long as you control a forest, it gets -2/-2, like the angel. So if you're in these colors and you get all the basic land types turned on, this is a 5/5 vigilance lifelink creature, which is about on rate, probably, for cobbling together 4 mana in this combination. It's good, though. Yeah, if that's a creature that you can cast in limited, 5/5 vigilance lifelink, that's better than most of the other stuff you can do in limited. So, again, it's a very solid body. You'll be pretty happy if you manage to resolve this. Even later in the game, it's a pretty good battlefield presence. Consortium Reaving. We've got the uncommon removal spell here. 1 and white, blue, black, red. So it's a 5 mana sorcery. Destroy target permanent. You draw 2 cards, gain 2 life, create 2 tapped treasure tokens, and create 2 trash tokens. And then if you control a forest, you sacrifice 6 permanents. So don't do that. Don't control a forest. To be fair, you did just give yourself 4 extra permanents. So you're really just kind of sacrificing 2 beyond what the spell gave you, but still. And it describes again what a trash token is here. It's a colorless artifact token named Trash that says pay 1, tap, sacrifice this artifact, mill 1, then surveil 1. Just a nice little card selection, graveyard filling value piece. This is a super powerful spell. Ramping you, gaining you life, drawing you cards. all while taking something out. The trash tokens are just kind of like extra gravy on top of all that. So, ridiculous. But I feel like you should be rewarded for actually getting together the 4 colors of mana that are not green. So, I made the spells pretty strong. Durza Rivet Maker. She is a 1/3 Dwarf Artificer. She's rare for a red, a green, and a white. Legendary. When Durza enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. So right off the bat, you're getting 4 power and 6 toughness for 3. That's a good deal. Yeah. She also has tap, sacrifice an artifact, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature, then surveil 1. So she plays into kind of what Roka is all about. All right, she adds artifacts to the field, and then she can use all the extra artifact tokens for the Artifact Matters theme, and she can turn those into +1 counters. She can bolt more armor and weapons onto the golems. So, pretty cool card. You know, well statted, has a useful ability, just all the way around, is giving you good bang for your buck. Duvala Telg, Freelancer. You remember when we saw the little 1/2 vanilla creature in black, the young sellsword? And I said that would become one of the important characters of the set. Well, Duvala Telg here shows up in flavor text in a lot of the sets. And some of it, it's people trying to mentor her while she's, becoming, an experienced mercenary and all of that. But eventually, she grows into her own person and ends up defying the consortium. She's still, kind of a rogue agent. She's black-red, but she's not corrupt. She's not totally black-hearted. Anyway, what she is a 4/4 rare human mercenary, legendary, for 1, a black and a red. And she's got Provoke, Reach, and Trample. So, Reach and Trample are obviously good. Makes you good at blocking, makes you good at attacking. What's Provoke again? Didn't that come from, like, Onslaught block or something? Here's the reminder text. Provoke means whenever this creature attacks, you may have target creature defending player controls untap and block it if able. Just like an Onslaught block, there's something you need to watch out for, which is if they can tap the creature in response. Right, if the creature does not have Summoning Sickness and it's got a tap ability, you untapping the creature means they've got the opportunity before blocks are declared to tap and use the creature's activated ability, and then it still doesn't have to block and you gave them extra value, so don't do that. And then if they've got some card that, can tap 3 creatures you control or 5 creatures you control, and it doesn't have a sorcery speed clause, then again, they could tap it in response. Don't do that. But Provoke is a way that you can try to force a creature to block. This was before Fight was really a mechanic in green, and obviously before Bite. But they were experimenting. They were on their way to figuring out that they wanted Fight and Bite spells to be in green and red. So Provoke, I think, was on green, red, and white creatures originally. So we're still in the correct part of the color pie. We've got red on her card. Red, I believe, always had Provoke available to it. So it's a weird old ability, but yeah, you can force an opponent's creature to untap and block if able. It has to block her specifically. So it's neat. And she's got a good stat line for being 3 mana. So she's just a solid creature. She's not doing anything too fancy outside of that. But what you get It's a 4/4 for 3 with all these keywords. I think that's good enough. Golbrun Farenvale. Here we have one of the archmages of the consortium. He costs 1 white, blue, black, red. So he's a 5 mana, rare, legendary creature, human wizard. He's a 3/5. He has Ward 1. And he can pay 2, tap, and banish 3 to exile, the top 3 cards of your library. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. It's not the first time we've seen, a copy effect on a creature like this, but he doesn't ask you to jump through very many hoops to do it, is the thing. I took a look at the list of stuff on, Gatherer that does this sort of thing, and a lot of them require setup. Like, it only copies your own spells, not the opponent's spells, or you have to put a bunch of level up counters on it first before it can do the thing. Golbrun just does the thing, basically. Whether that makes him a good enough card to see play in Constructed, I don't know, but he can copy your spells, he can copy the opponent's spells. It's going to be a pain in the neck. So if the opponent does resolve him, you want to get rid of him before they can use his ability. Heartless Annihilation. We're seeing lots of the consortium magic. This is 2 colorless, white, blue, black, red. So it's a 6 mana sorcery at rare. Destroy all creatures and basic lands. For each basic land destroyed this way, that land's controller creates a colorless basic land token named Wastes. With tap, add colorless. This is kind of like telling the story of the Consortium War and the plane of Veldmar. It's been devastated by these heartless acts of annihilation. Now, just something like destroying all basic lands is a bit cruel. I'm not looking to try to make a new Armageddon exactly, but it does color screw you. But you don't come down on mana. You have the same number of mana available. And, you're just like a land in hand, a top deck away from hitting your next colored source. If you're in a monocolor deck, they probably hit a bunch of your lands, but it's also much easier to come out from under what this did to you. Right? The first colored source that you top deck in a monocolor deck kind of turns the deck back on. Maybe you can't hit something that costs double of your color quite yet, but you can start casting suddenly a bunch of your spells off of one more land back. If you're in a multicolor deck, you probably have more non-basics. Which means, again, you're probably not totally color hosed because you were relying on more non-basic fixing. So, I don't think this card has an unreasonable impact on the game when you think about it. You can either quickly get the mana that you need, or you might already have most of the mana that you need through non-basic sources. But it's interesting. It is a board sweeper, and to some extent a color hoser. It is symmetrical, so it's hitting you as well. So you might want to not run as many basic lands as normal if you're going the Heartless Annihilation route. But it's an interesting spell. I don't know that it's necessarily better than like Wrath of God or Depopulate, but I think it does a good job of telling Veldmar's story. Lucine Quedron. We're actually meeting Lucine before we see her in the art and flavor text of some colorless cards. So she is blue and a black. She is a mythic rare. She is a 2/3 legendary human rogue wizard. Whenever an opponent puts an artifact, enchantment, instant, or sorcery card from their library into their graveyard, such as from milling, you may pay 2. If you do, exile that card, and you may cast it from exile at any time. She also has the ability of pay 1, tap, target opponent mills 2. So Lucine is a thief. That is what she does. She steals things from the opponent. Specifically, she doesn't steal people. She doesn't steal land. You can't tuck that in your back pocket. But she absconds with whatever she can carry. So she steals artifacts, enchantments, instants, and sorceries. She's just kind of a fun side character in Veldmar. And you're going to see more of her once we get to colorless. Memory Erasure. This is blue, black, and green. So this is part of the Pax Dread. It's a sorcery. It's a rare. Target opponent banishes 13. Just flat out, kind of like Archive Trap, except it's into exile. And it's 3 mana instead of 5. It doesn't have an alternate mode where you can cast it for less. Also, Archive Trap's an instant, I believe. And this is kind of a story beat card where we're seeing that Archmage Valadra gets her memories erased by letting a Pax Dread agent get too close to her. Mordanu, Viridian Death. So this is a 6-mana dragon. It costs 3 black, red, green. This color combination is the Ulthrak. Ulthrak cares about creatures that cost 6 mana or more. So Mordanu fits the bill. It's a 6/6 legendary dragon. It's a rare. It has Death Touch, Flying, and Trample. And when Mordanu enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures your opponents control that were dealt damage this turn. If no creatures died this way, destroy up to 1 target creature. So, one way or another, Mordanu's breath weapon is killing something. If you had like a big combat turn and, made like a go-wide attack, got into a situation where you made a bunch of bad attacks, the opponent had good blocks, then you can cast Mordanu and just kind of clean up their board afterwards. But at the minimum, even in like a board stall situation or whatever, you can just cast Mordanu, and if that ability doesn't trigger, it's going to destroy 1 creature anyway. And that's on top of being like a 6/6 Death Touch Flying Trampler. So, between the creature removal and the, giant body with relevant keywords and stuff, I think this will be a pretty fun card. Morthek Vel, Ritualist. Surprise, you're a planeswalker. This is him arriving in another plane, one that's like vibrant with butterflies and mushrooms and forests and stuff. He's a Nulvir character. Costs 1 green, white, and black. Legendary Planeswalker Morthek. He is a mythic. He has 4 loyalty starting. +1, create a 1/1 white human creature token, then draw a card. That's a heck of a good plus ability. Make a creature and draw a card. It's very, very strong. I recognize this. -1, sacrifice a creature, then each opponent discards a card and you gain 4 life. The minus ability is more niche. It's going back to his roots as part of an aristocrats theme. And there probably are times when you'd rather attack the opponent's hand and maybe gain life. But this first minus ability here is not as good as the plus ability, most likely, most of the time. And then -3, you banish 1, so you exile the top card of your library. Then you destroy target non-land permanent, which is a great piece of removal. It's just a very no-nonsense, get rid of what ails you kind of thing. So he doesn't have an ultimate per se, but he's useful all the way around. His +1 and his -3 are especially good. Um, and the -1 depends on what kind of fight you're in. You know, if you're battling a control deck, I could see some situations where it might be more advantageous to go after their hand. Also, this ability works even if you don't have creatures on the board. It doesn't say, like, as an extra cost to activate this ability, sacrifice a creature. So you could have a blank board state and be activating the -1 just to get the opponent to discard and gain 4. And that makes it look a little better, actually. As if you're not bothering to have a board state, then the -1 actually looks a little cleaner, a little better. Anyway, it's just kind of a rock-solid Planeswalker. Not doing anything too fancy here, but I think it's going to be playable. I think it's going to be pretty good. Nullveer Recruiter. So, speaking of the Nullveer again, we've got 1 green, white, black, a 2/2 Gorgon Assassin for 4 at uncommon. She's got Death Touch. And when she enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. So this is kind of a glue card for the Nullveer. You know, they need fodder to sacrifice, and this card does that for you. So it's just a good setup piece kind of card. The Death Touch is nice. Just kind of a rock solid limited card all the way around. Outside chance it could have some constructed application. Nullveer Ritualist. Green, white, and black. We have a 2/4 Vampire Warlock at uncommon. He's got lifelink. And tap, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. So this is a good sacrifice outlet. Very good one, in fact. Sacking creatures to draw cards is classic. One of the better things you can be doing. Doesn't cost any mana to use this ability either. It's a very good card. And we get some flavor text from Morthek Vel, who's the guy we just saw turned into a Planeswalker. Paradise Generator. This is an artifact. It's in consortium colors. 3 colorless, white, blue, black, red. So that's 7 total mana. It's a rare artifact at the beginning of your upkeep. You draw a card, you banish 1, you gain 3 life, and each player creates a trash token. So, generates a lot of value for you. Also generates trash. And the last one gives each player trash. Which, that feels... This is a flavor choice to make that part symmetrical. It just feels so much like the consortium. To, generate paradise for themselves and then just give trash to everyone. It's, again, telling like the story of the plane. I like how the art came out from the AI on this one. It also has the ability tap. Target opponent gains control of target trash token you control. That opponent loses 1 life, then you untap target land. And again, that's kind of almost more of a flavor thing that I put on the card, but it can be useful. You can hand off your trash tokens, deal a little bit of extra damage. Untapping a land could be a big deal, like in older formats, eternal formats, like in Commander and other stuff. You can imagine untapping one of your specialty lands. It taps for, green for the number of creatures you control, or 2 colorless, or, things like that. Packstrad Mindshield. Black, green, and blue. It's an uncommon enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller banishes 1 for each creature they control that's attacking you. So, this is worded kind of the same way that Ghostly Prison or Propaganda or, Koskan Falls from Homelands. If anyone remembers that. Anyway, this has got that kind of wording. So the opponent has to exile cards from their library, banish, in order to declare attackers against you. Now, it's not that hard to do, but if you can pace out your spells and mill the opponent hard enough, this could eventually reach the point that they can't win the game anymore, and you're going to mill them out. So it's another way to tax their resources, basically. If you're not trying to go for a mill win, you don't want this card in your deck, which is fine because the people in this color combination get to pick it up. Pax Dread Scion, black, green, and blue. We have a 2/4 elf wizard at uncommon with flying. Whenever an opponent banishes one or more cards, instead they banish that many plus 1. So this amps up the banish of all their banish effects by 1 card. So if they're doing any self-banishing, this gets especially painful. And, you know, you could pair this with the enchantment that we just saw. Now they have to banish 2 for every creature attacking you. That definitely is adding up. Professor Weistron from Quelnai College. We've got blue, red, and green. A 2/4 flying menace legendary creature human wizard at rare. Whenever Professor Weistron deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then gain life equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Useful guy. You know, just good solid effect. Might or might not get there in constructed, but honestly, anything that draws you cards and gains you life is helping you win a damage race, helping you get ahead on resources. So I could see this guy having a home in constructed somewhere. I think he's pretty decent. Quelnai Innovations. Green, a blue, and a red. We have an uncommon enchantment. Sacrifice Quelnai Innovations. Draw 2 cards. Then deal X damage to any target, where X is the number of cards you've drawn this turn. So this is another big payoff card for if you've managed to draw enough cards in your Quelnai deck in Limited. And I will say in older formats, where there are some draw 7 effects and stuff floating around, that this could deal an awful lot of damage, potentially. So I think this card's got some play to it, whether it's limited or constructed. Quelnai Professor, 1 green, blue, red. We got a 2/4 giant wizard at uncommon. She has reach. Whenever you draw your 2nd card each turn, gain 2 life. Whenever you draw your 3rd card each turn, deal 2 damage to any target. Whenever you draw your 4th card each turn, create a 4/4 blue elemental creature token with flying. Of all the cards I've designed, this is one of the ones that I was most curious about testing. Because I don't know how easy it is or how impossible it is to hit the 3rd card draw and 4th card draw consistently with this. If you can do it consistently, it's going to be too powerful. It'll be much too good. If you can do it kind of like once in a while, then it's probably fine. You know, if it only ever generates like 1 4/4 and maybe 2 shocks the whole time that you have it, that would be great, obviously, but maybe not too far out of line. And you had to jump through the hoops and do the things to, get to 3 and 4 card draws in a single turn. And maybe that cost you mana in itself to do it. So, again, this one I feel like I need a little testing on. I'm curious whether it might be too good or whether it's fine. Roca Inventor. This is 1 red, green, and white. We have 3/3 Dwarf Artificer at uncommon. He's got Bulwark 2, so he attacks as a 3/5. When he enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless golem. So you're kind of getting like 6 power and toughness for 4 mana. When he's attacking, you're even getting like 6 power and 8 toughness. But he's even better than that. You can pay 3 mana, tap, sacrifice 2 golems. Search your library for an artifact creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Activate this ability only as a sorcery. So this is kind of a build around uncommon. One of the things you can try to do in Roca in draft is build around this guy and try to get things that make golems for you. And then you need some giant artifact creatures to be the payoffs that he goes and fetches straight out of your library. Fortunately, there are a bunch of giant artifact creatures, so that is something you can do. But it's an interesting draft strategy to try to pursue. He's pretty good as is, though. Comes with a lot of stats for his mana cost. Roca Juggernaut. This is an artifact creature. He costs 3 red, green, white. It is an uncommon 0/6 artifact creature Juggernaut. It has trample. It attacks each turn if able, and Roca Juggernaut gets +2/+0 for each artifact you control. It counts itself. So you got at least a 2/6 trampler, but if you've been doing the Roca deck correctly, the way you're supposed to, then this might very easily come down and be like a 10 power trampler, a 14 power trampler. Could be pretty absurd. It's just a good way to try to close out the game, which by the time you're getting your 6 drops down, hopefully the game is moving towards an end anyway. And this isn't a bad target to fetch with the last guy, if you've got the golems. Statue Collector. So this is a fun mythic here. 2 colorless, a black, and a green. So she doesn't specifically sit with any one faction. You know, she could be part of the Nullveer. She could be part of Pax Dread. Or she could even be hanging out with the Ulthrak. Anyway. So you got a 4/5 for 4. It's a mythic. Creature Gorgon Assassin. She has lifelink and protection from artifacts. Protection from artifacts is relevant in the set, but it's especially relevant to what her card does. Whenever Statue Collector blocks or becomes blocked, destroy each creature blocking it or blocked by it at end of combat. If a creature is destroyed this way, its controller creates a 0/1 colorless wall artifact creature token with Defender. Alright, so now you see the protection from artifacts is playing nicely with this ability that she has that's giving the opponent these wall tokens. Well, she can waltz right past those walls, because artifact creatures can't block her. And that makes sense. You know, she turned them to stone. She knows what they are. She can sidestep them. This is a flavorful card, but potentially also good. We'll see. Talavir Eslerim. Green, a white, and a blue. So he is in the Zarnik Collective's colors. He's a 3/4 legendary elf artificer at rare. Whenever you exile one or more cards from your library, Talavir gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. And you can tap 3 untapped trash tokens you control to tap target creature. The Zarnik are all about self-banish and trash tokens. He gives you another angle of attack. Um, Basically, he's got more payoffs for having done the things you're supposed to be doing in Zarnik. You know, he doesn't have a bad body on his own, but he's so much better if he's in the deck that's trying to turn on his abilities. Tiva Brasspicker. So she is a 5 mana, 2 red, green, white Goblin Artificer. She's a 6/4 legendary, mythic. She's got First Strike, Reach, and Trample. And 6 power First Striker is quite a thing. And whenever Tiva Brasspicker Demolitionist attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. Oh, I changed her name because it wasn't fitting well up here. I'll have to change that in the text box. But anyway, when she attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, Tiva deals 6 damage to any target. So you're not getting like card draw and benefits and stuff when she enters the battlefield. Maybe that stops her from being a playable card, but she's fun. She's big, she has trample, first strike, reach, so she fights most other creatures quite well. If you ever get to attack with her, then she can start dealing 6 damage to any target by sacking artifacts. She's powerful. I don't know if she'll get to constructed play. Seems like everything needs to like draw a card and leave behind a token when it dies and stuff. To see constructed play at 5 mana, but we'll see. Torvrook. It costs 1 black, red, green. Legendary creature Orc Shaman. He is a 5/4, a rare. He's got vigilance. When Torvrook enters the battlefield, banish cards until you reveal 3 creature cards with mana cost 6 or more, then put them into your hand. You can also tap to add 2 mana of any one color. So he will ramp you straight up to those 6 drops that the Ulthrak care about from 4. And he finds you things to be casting with that mana that he's giving you. So in Limited, the main problem is you need a lot of things in your deck for him to find, because you can't run the risk of casting him if you... Okay, if you have less than 3, he mills you out. Because he goes banishing, looking for 3 things, doesn't find them, and your whole library is gone. If you have exactly 3 left, and one of them's the last card, well, too bad. He exiles your whole library to find that last card. So hopefully you've got more like 5 or 6 of these targets left for him to find if you're in Limited. And that's a lot of 6 drops, or 6+ drops, to have in your Limited deck. I'm not saying you can't play him in Limited, but it's a risk, something to be aware of. In Constructed, I think he could be quite good. Trash Harmonics. It's a green, a white, and a blue. It's an instant. It's a rare. Until end of turn, trash tokens you control have tap. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, Trash Harmonics replaces itself. That's nice. And it can be a reasonable counterspell if you have enough trash tokens. You know, how much you're taxing their mana depends on how many trash tokens you're able to get onto the field. And even if you're not able to stop their spell from going off, you could still at least cycle this thing to draw a card and waste the rest of their mana that turn on paying for your counterspell. So the fact it replaces itself with a card is pretty nice. And I think that could make it playable You don't want to run it if you don't have trash tokens, but as long as you're doing the trash token thing, then I think this could be a pretty good card. Ulthrak Compost. This is a 5 mana instant at uncommon, costs 2 black, red, green. Destroy target permanent. Search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So yeah, this is much like that one saga I forget the name of, where you get to blow something up and then you find a forest and put it into play tapped. Well, this is 5 mana, it's not 4, but you go ahead and destroy a thing and find a basic land immediately. And for what it's worth, it comes into play untapped. So 5 is a lot to pay for a removal spell, but it's a really good removal spell. One that has card advantage, is getting you hit on mana, deals with every type of permanent, even lands. So I think this card will probably see play. Ulthrak Philosopher. So for a black, a red, and a green, we have a 4/3 Goblin Shaman at uncommon. She's got Menace. Plus, when she enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with mana cost 6 or more, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This card is strong. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This card is just really strong. It's really good. When you're designing a set, you have to kind of pick and choose where you want to put some of the strength of it. If it feels like a color combination is lacking a little bit compared to another one, then you have to nudge it. You have to go over and push it to be a little stronger. And that's kind of what happened here. I would say this card is a bit above rate, even with the power creep that modern cards are doing. But Ulthrak needed a little bit of a boost, so I'm okay with doing it here. Valadra Orusaniel. The big bad, the main Archmage villain of the Consortium that you see across other art in the set. She costs 7, 3 and white, blue, black, red. She is a 4/4 legendary creature, elf wizard. She's a mythic. She has ward, sacrifice 3 permanents. Yes, that is very painful. It's not that you can't pay it, right? You probably have creatures and other permanents, and if nothing else, you can, sacrifice your lands that you tapped for mana. But that hurts. It's always like a serious cost. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add white, blue, black, red. This mana can only be used to cast artifact, enchantment, instant, and/or sorcery spells. So, it's potent. She gives you a big mana boost. Only for certain types of spells, but it's a pretty wide range of spells. She also has the activated ability, pay 1, tap. You banish 7. You may cast artifact, enchantment, instant, and/or sorcery spells from among the exiled cards this turn. So she kind of has her own finite, with stipulations, kind of draw 7. You have to use them this turn, and they can only be one of those 4 card types, but still, yowza. She is a potent magic card, for sure. She costs a lot of mana, but wow, she does a lot. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if she's fair. Sometimes you just have an idea for a card, you put it out there, and then you let playtesting fix your mistakes. So I just have to see if she's okay in this form or whether she's super, super busted. Zarnik Animator. This is an uncommon artifact. 3 colorless, green, white, blue. Trash tokens you control become 2/2 construct creatures in addition to their other types. And it can tap to sacrifice an artifact. You gain 3 life, then surveil 1. So this is one of the Zarnik like signpost uncommons, where you're like, why have I been making all these trash tokens? Well, this one turns them all into 2/2s. And you get a sacrifice outlet for them that can do something other than what they usually do. So it's a pretty neat card. It can let you suddenly turn the game on its head with all these 2/2s that are ready to attack. Zarnik Researcher. A green, a white, and a blue. We have a 3/4 elf wizard at uncommon with vigilance. Whenever one or more cards are exiled from your library, you may gain 2 life and put a card you own from outside the game, not exile, on the bottom of your library. This ability only triggers once each turn. So this is neat. In non-casual Magic, cards you own from outside the game are in your sideboard, basically. And this could be a lot of fun in like draft and stuff, where you start looking into, the sideboard junk that you've got, and kind of raise the question of, are there any of these things I'd like to get into the mix this game? Anything I'd like to sideboard in? Maybe you never see it because it goes to the bottom of your library, but maybe at some point you shuffle. Or maybe the game goes really long and you do a lot of self-banish and you get down to those cards. It could be fun. And again, in Constructed, you've got ideally a pretty good sideboard. Some of it might be pretty niche, but it's interesting, it messes a little bit with an odd part of the game. Green-blue cards have done this before. I believe there was a split card for maybe one of the Ravnicas that could like shuffle 4 cards you own from outside the game into your library. But it's just kind of a neat effect. It also helps to prevent you from milling out. So there's that. Zamot Wellcrest, Explorer. So this guy is kind of kind of full of himself, cocky, dashing rogue type of character. He has a number of appearances in the flavor text, especially of the non-basic land cycle. So he costs a red and a green. He's not part of a particular organization. You could play him in several different ones. He's a 3/2 for 2. Legendary creature, human rogue scout. He's rare. He's got vigilance. As long as it's your turn, Zamot has first strike. And whenever Zamot enters the battlefield or attacks, banish 2, then put all land cards exiled this way into your hand. If no land cards were exiled, create a treasure token. He's always finding you mana. If there weren't any lands, then he finds mana in the form of treasure from the surrounding environment and the stuff that he's looting. Just kind of a cool, little aggressive cards, pretty well statted. I think it could definitely see play. And finally, we've got Zeldrava Palthaxanar. 1 blue, black, and green. Legendary creature, elf wizard. She is a 3/5 for 4 at rare. She's got ward 2. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they banish 2. And that's got a little bit of a shade of Sholdred there. Except it's milling instead of killing. but these mills go to exile. And she's got the ability pay 2 and tap. You may play one card exiled by her, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. So she's got a little bit of that thief flavor going on as well. She's also one of the more primary characters of the narrative. You'll see her crop up a little bit more in going into colorless and such. But she's the one who took down, the head of the consortium, Villaja. And that brings us to the end of Multicolor. So I hope you all have had a bunch of fun. These were the big over-the-top cards where I spent more of my what would you call it? If you've got like points, like if you had a point system where you could spend how much power a card had in a set, I spent some of that here among the multicolor cards. I was trying to encourage people to actually go into the lanes and play, the archetypes that they're supposed to play. So I wanted there to be good payoffs, good reasons to go and do those things. So let me know what you think. We've still got colorless and land to go. That might all be one video. Please like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. Helps out the channel a bunch. And until next time, never stop honing your critical thinking and empathy.